Okay, gang, this is the second page of the review packet for the midterm. Let's pop through these. Suppose the revenue are in thousands of dollars, so I'm not knowing that, thousands of dollars, that a company receives from producing X thousand compact disc players is given by this lovely formula. What is the maximum revenue the company can receive? All right, so let's take a look at this. We have R of X equals X 60 minus 3x. Well, if I distribute that x, I get 60x minus 3x squared. The x squared means it's a quadratic, specifically a negative quadratic, which means it's going to be concave down. So that would be our maximum. So we can use the axis of symmetry to find that point. So axis of symmetry is x equals negative b over 2a. So if I plug into that, I get negative 60 over 2 times negative 3, which makes negative 60 over negative 6, which is 10. All right, now this tells me the x. That means if I produce x thousand, so 10,000 compact disc players would maximize this. But to find the maximum revenue, I got to plug 10 in. So now I'm going to plug in at 10. You can plug it into either of these. So if I plug it into this guy, that means I would have that. So that means I have 10 times 30, which is 300. Now the answer is not 300 because the revenue is in thousands of dollars. So the max revenue would be $300,000. Include units, which I did. So there's money. All right, so that's the answer. Now, we have to be careful. I asked for revenue, which is why this is the answer. If I wanted to find out what X value maximizes, this would have been 10,000, would have been that answer. But this asked for the revenue. All right, let's go to the next question. Oh, it's a radical equation. And the way we solve a radical equation, I'm going to switch to a blue pen, is we square both sides. So on this side, I write the x minus 3 twice. And on this side, I have to be careful. I got to make sure I square the negative as well. So a negative squared becomes positive, and then the radical goes away. So I end up with this so far. Now I'm going to distribute here. And get that. I'm going to combine like terms and get x squared minus 6x plus 9. And because it's a quadratic, I'm going to set it equal to 0. So I get x squared minus 9x, subtract 19 over. All right, now this factors into x minus 10, x plus 1 equals 0. Notice I have the equal 0. You always want to carry it along. So my two possible answers are 10 and negative 1. Now I said possible answers because we do have to check these. So now I'm going to do a quick check. So I'm going to do 10 minus 3. Will that equal negative? If I plug in 10 in here, that becomes 30 plus 19. So does 7 equal negative radical 49? Does 7 equal negative 7? No. So I'm going to reject the 10. Now I'm going to try negative 1. Negative 1 minus 3. Will that equal negative radical negative 3 plus 19? So will negative 4 equal negative radical 16? Oh, it does. So just negative 1 is the answer to the question. All right, next one. It says, given that lovely polynomial, let's say, completely factor f of x into linear factors and find all zeros given that f of negative 1 equals 0. Now this is important. This is basically the remainder theorem. All right, this means that negative 1 is a factor of this thing. So that means I can use synthetic division to divide this guy. So that means if I put negative 1 in a box and I write down all the coefficients, 1, 5, 3, negative 5, negative 4. Okay, bring down the 1. This times this is negative 1. Add down is 4. 4 times him is negative 4. Add down. Negative times a negative 1. Add down. Okay, notice I got a 0. That had to happen because this said if you plug in negative 1, 0 is an answer. So now I've divided once. The original exponent was 4. I divided once. That means this becomes 1x cubed plus 4x squared minus x to the first minus 4. All right. So far, because we have this negative 1 here, that means x plus 1 is a factor. So it's one of my factors. Now I have to factor this guy. These guys have an x squared in common, so I pull out, there would be an x plus 4. Bring down the sign in the middle. These guys have a 1 in common. Again, if it's a negative, negative divided by negative is a positive. That becomes positive 4. So this factors into x squared minus 1, x plus 4. And then this factors into x plus 1, x minus 1, x plus 4. But don't forget, he's also a factor. So we actually have 2 of these. X plus 1 squared, x minus 1, x plus 4. Now, remember, the exponent was a 4. So notice I have 1, 2, 3, 4 factors. All right. So that's the first part. Determine the end behavior. Well, the degree equals 4. So the end behavior, so both sides end the same. Both go up. And the reason why they both go up is this is a positive x to the 4th. All right, determine the y-intercept. The y-intercept is what we get when we plug in 0. And if I plug 0 in for this, I get negative 4. So that's the point 0 and negative 4. All right, now graph it. Well, we know we're hitting the x-axis at negative 1, positive 1, and negative 4. Okay. I also know I'm hitting 0, negative 4 down here. And we know both are going to go up. Both arms are up like this. So now, I'm headed towards this guy. This is to the first power, so I'm going to go through the point. Now I'm headed towards negative 1. I'm going to bounce off it because the exponent had a 2. I'm going to go down through the y-intercept, and then I'm going to pass through this one, and notice I connect, and we're all set. So the trick to doing this question was to use this piece of information. Because I know this divides into this guy. And then I go from there. All right, and that's the second piece.